Good afternoon. It's a pleasure to be with you. When my friend Prem Watsa connected me with Ivey in this event, I was hopeful we would do it in person. Maybe in the future we'll have that opportunity. I was asked to spend a few minutes talking about the transformation at GE, but I'm sure for all of the attendees here today, it'll be more fun to go to questions and answers. But if I can just take a couple of minutes to frame for you what we're doing at GE, very much a multi-year transformation in my view. What we're doing is really focused on three key efforts to realize the value at GE. First, we're doing all we can to fortify the foundation of this company, to make it more focused, simpler, and stronger. There's a lot we're doing to build the momentum across the company as we prepare to come out of the pandemic. And I think we see that in a host of instances, and I'll give you a little bit of color around that. And then finally, what we're really all about here is playing for the long term. Long-term sustainable value creation really is the ultimate objective here at GE. And I think we're well positioned to realize some incredible opportunities across the portfolio. And when we put that together, step by step, day in, day out, year in, year out, I think that really is how we're going to realize the value inherent in the GE portfolio. If I start first with that foundation, of course it starts with the team. The talent that we've assembled, I think, makes for a tremendous team. And they're the ones really doing the work underway and driving the improvements and the results. It's a team that's made up of people who've been here their entire careers. And the GE team is an intelligent, driven, action-oriented group. It's a pleasure to be on this team. But we've augmented the GE folks with a number of outside hires from no one place. Because when we're looking to add talent to a team like this, you really are looking for needles in haystacks. But I really like the mix of people we've been able to bring on board to drive the transformation. And what we've been doing with respect to the foundation, again, first and foremost, is really making sure that we're a more focused company. And when you look at GE today, it's a little different than maybe what some of you will recall from years past. Very focused on 4 industrial businesses. Our power, our renewables, aviation, and healthcare businesses, all in their own right, would be significant standalone companies that constitute the heart and the soul of GE today. If we talk about a simpler GE, I just go back a few weeks now to the announcement that we've made to merge our aircraft leasing business, GCAS, with a competitor company called AerCap. We'll create a phenomenal franchise going forward. We'll own nearly half of that company. But in the course of that transaction, we will simplify our financial reporting, because with GE Capital previously, we basically had 3-column reporting, given we had a finance company under the roof. And that has, I think, been at times a struggle for investors. We'll be able to go to single-column reporting. Again, it makes for a simpler story. And all the while, we've been making sure that this foundation is stronger. And what we mean by that is really driven by our efforts to implement what we call lean, rooted in 30 years for myself of studying the Toyota production system, but really making sure that we're focused on serving customers with as little waste in the process of doing so as we possibly can. And that lean effort is coupled with a significant decentralization effort to manage not 4 businesses, which are our 4 reporting segments, but the nearly 30 P&Ls that constitute the day in, day out work that we do at GE. The more we focus on those P&Ls, the more likely we are to satisfy customers, and along the way, heighten accountability and responsibility. So off that stronger foundation, we're really looking to, again, build momentum as we look to exit the pandemic. And it was just an hour ago, literally, that I walked out of a review with our gas power business, which is as good an example as we have of the type of momentum that we're building operating in this new way. And I say that because it was nearly 2.5 years ago that I joined the company as CEO. Just a couple of months before that, I'd had my first in-depth review with our power business, then as a board member. And I could see very clearly there were a host of ways in which we were confusing how we report a segment with how we run 4 discrete businesses day in, day out. So what we did shortly after I became CEO was take that power segment, break it into its 4 constituent pieces. Our gas power business being the largest P&L. We have 3 others which we group together as our power portfolio and began to manage them really from the bottoms up, making sure that we were focused on safety, quality, delivery, cost, and cash, let alone customers, and everything that we're doing across those businesses. And we were thrilled last year with the gas power performance. They achieved positive free cash a year earlier than what we had been anticipating. More importantly, the way they went about it, again, changing the rigor of our daily work, using lean principles throughout the organization really gives us, I think, a benchmark internally that we're using to transform the way we operate across the GE portfolio. And when you think about the momentum we'll have as we exit the pandemic, particularly in our other businesses, certainly if you look at aviation, a business has been hammered by the COVID-induced drops in demand in commercial aviation. We're poised, I think, to come out as people return to travel, both leisure and business travel. Excited by the fact we're going to have the largest and the youngest narrow-body engine fleet out there. And with our new platforms, both LEAP in the narrow-body space and our 9X in the wide-body arena, we're well positioned to drive future growth in that industry as it recovers. So a lot to do in aviation. We don't quite know yet when that recovery will occur, but we can certainly sense the stirrings of that recovery as we visit with you today. Our healthcare business had a very strong second half last year, coming on the heels of a first half where we were on the front lines, really from the first days in Wuhan through acceleration of our ventilator production capabilities around the world, so that we had a strong financial performance in the second half, very much, well, in many ways, separate from the COVID dynamics, all the while bringing 40 new products to market late in the year. So as we look at 2021 and beyond, we know that's a phenomenal franchise that sits at the heart of precision healthcare, something we're very excited about. And again, our power and renewables businesses both are in the midst of turnarounds in many respects. But as I decided a moment ago with respect to the progress at gas power, we see that across the rest of the power segment and certainly in our renewables business as well. We just completed our first quarter. We'll report here in a few weeks. In the middle of that quarter, we got out and had our first quarterly operating reviews with all of our businesses. And there were just countless examples of the types of momentum that we're keen to drive more of across the GE portfolio. We're certainly excited about what lies ahead, but we know we've got plenty of work to do. And if we think about the value creation opportunity long term, it really is helpful, I think, to step back and look at the problems that we're solving at GE. Power and renewables sit in the heart of the energy transition. The world probably doesn't have a more pressing challenge than the energy transition, and we think we're particularly well positioned to play a leadership role. Our renewables business has the #1 position in the U.S. in onshore wind, 2 years running, and that's a business that we know has tremendous potential going forward. We have retooled our offering in the offshore wind space. We're certainly seeing up and down the Atlantic tremendous interest to mirror what we've seen here over the last couple of years in Europe. So we're excited about our new Haliade X offshore wind platform, keen to get that launched and installed, again, to be part of the solution. Our gas business has an important role to play, and we've seen a lot of emissions reductions as a result of the coal to gas switch. We think we have much more of a contribution to make in that regard as we go forward. And clearly, as we think about hydrogen longer term, our gas turbines today, over 70 of them run on some hydrogen mix. and we know we have the capability over time to run on a full hydrogen mixture. That'll be good for that business, clearly good for the environment. And our grid business has an important role to play as well. The advent of renewables creates grid management challenges. You probably know that. Our grid business, particularly with our digital capabilities, I think is well positioned to help maximize the role of renewables in the power generation mix. And I'd be remiss if I didn't mention our nuclear business. We've made a number of important investments in small modular reactors in concert there with OPG, Ontario Power, and are excited about the role we can play there to continue to lead in a number of key technologies that will be critical to the energy transition. I mentioned our healthcare business a moment ago. We have a front row seat in the precision healthcare revolution, given our leadership position in a number of imaging modalities. And that too will be a digital play for us going forward as we look not only to personalize the diagnostics and the therapeutics in healthcare today, but also to help streamline workflows that will help not only caregivers, but patients going forward. And as we look at the future of flight, again, no business is better positioned than GE Aviation to lead in that regard. We know the future of flight in the near term will be focused on getting people back in the air safely, confidently. We're excited about that. But over time, here too, the energy transition and sustainability concerns will help drive next generation technologies. GE Aviation has always led on the back of fuel efficiency advances. That'll be no less important with the next generations of aircraft, particularly narrow body commercial aircraft. And we're excited about the opportunities there, be it in hybrid electrics and other capabilities. So as you think about that, it comes back to the team, right? Off that fortified foundation with momentum building, with long-term opportunities that really matter. This team, I think, is well poised to not only transform this storied GE company, but to create tremendous value as we look forward. So I think with that, George, I'll take a breath here, and we'll open it up to whatever questions the group has.
Hey, thank you very much. Okay, we'll open it to Q&A now. Jake, why? Jake, yeah. I'll allow you to talk now, so you can unmute yourself, please.
Hi, Mr. Culp. Can you hear me?
I can. Larry's just fine, thank you.
Hi, how are you? This might be a loaded question, so if you choose not to answer, I fully understand. It might be a tough question. So I read the book GE about the turning off the light, etc. And I want to ask you is that since you came on board, what would you say maybe top one or two issues that you encountered that caused the issue at GE, and what are you doing about it, and what did you learn from it, and what are you doing about it to make GE for the next 100 years? So.
Well, Jake, I think the book you're referring to is Lights Out, a book a couple of Wall Street Journal reporters wrote about GE's history a year or so ago. I would say that what I've tried to do in 2.5 years is stare reality in the eye today and look forward, and really not look backwards. But there are a number of things that we've been doing that I think are part of the change, part of the improvement at GE that may tie to some of the comments in that book. The first is really what I talked about earlier with respect to lean. Lean is very much an operating philosophy that we are deploying across the organization. It's not an initiative. It's not something that people do once to get promoted. It really is, if you will, a way of life. Again, hyper-focused on the customer, systematically rooting out waste at every opportunity, and doing all of that in a process-oriented way that isn't bureaucratic, but is sustainable. And that's what we've been doing across the organization. I brought in, Jake, 100 of our senior leaders for a week-long event in one of our manufacturing facilities almost 2 years ago. And we spent a week with my Japanese sensei, who taught me the core principles of the Toyota production system when I was a much younger man. And fortunately, he's still capable of helping in that regard. And that is driving not only a different way in which to operate a company like this, but frankly, ultimately, it will shape the culture that we have here at GE as well. I also mentioned decentralization. That's something else I'll hit on briefly. It's really important, I think, particularly when you have a portfolio of businesses, to make sure you're crystal clear as to where the businesses actually reside. And I said early on in my tenure here, and I'll say it again here, my worldview is that the benefits of focus far outweigh the benefits of scale. Now, you want to have both, and it isn't an either or choice. But what we've tried to do is focus less on GE, less on the center, less on the benefits of scale, and more on the benefits of focus. Having each of those 30-some P&Ls that I mentioned, clearly stating their strategy, making sure they've got the best possible teams in place to pursue those strategies, and then day in, day out operating in a lean fashion. I'm absolutely convinced, Jake, that as we do that more consistently, more naturally over time, we're going to transform this company and realize the value that we see at GE. And there's lots of ways to think about value, but for us, it comes down to free cash, right? That's, to me, the hallmark of a well-run industrial company. And we believe that we can generate high single-digit free cash flow margins here in the not too distant future. So a lot to do here, but hopefully that gives you a little bit of a sense of where we are today and where we're going in the future.
Great, thank you so much. Let's see some other people who have not been asked before. Kimmel, I gave you permission to talk, so please unmute yourself. Yep.
Thank you. Thanks for this great conference. And I actually happen to be a physician in Vancouver, and we use GE ultrasound. So great to hear from you. My question is around leadership, and with all the severe economic consequences and health consequences, how do you keep your team optimistic and enthusiastic during these times?
Well, I first of all want to thank you for the business. I hope we're doing well as your supplier and your partner. And if we're not, be sure to give me a ring after this. But I think the pandemic has tested all of us as leaders. I think I was incredibly fortunate here at GE to have a truly battle-tested, resilient, gritty team. Right? This was not the first crisis the GE team has seen. Perhaps it's been unprecedented in ways none of us have seen, and clearly hope not to see ever again. I think what I've tried to do, what we've tried to do, first and foremost, is just face reality. It was a little over a year ago where I think some people might have still been in denial that this was something unprecedented and worrisome. We tried to embrace what could be as firmly and as quickly as we could, not to be overly conservative or pessimistic, but I don't think in a situation like this, sugarcoating anything really does fortify anyone's morale, let alone the organization at large. And we then quickly pivoted to, in essence, a new plan. And our plan for 2020, the ink wasn't even dry on it before we had obviously a change of circumstance. And then what we did is we simply got on with it. Day in, day out, celebrating some of the small steps, acknowledging the difficulties, but also reminding people that we would get through this, right? The world, one of my good friends is fond of saying the world doesn't end very often, despite forecasts to the contrary. So we just had to keep moving forward. And again, whether it was our healthcare business that played so many critical roles in fighting COVID-19, our aviation business that had the most severe blows to their business possible, I think the GE team really persevered. I couldn't be prouder of what they've done. And a lot of what I saw in 2020 is what gives me such encouragement and confidence about what we're capable of here in 21 and beyond.
Great, thank you. Let's see, Laura Rittenhouse. Allowed to unmute. Okay, you can unmute yourself now, Laura.
Thank you so much. Mr. Culp, I've been following you for some time. I think it's so exciting what's happening there. It's so much about culture change. And my question is twofold. One, to what extent, I mean, GE has always excelled in technology. Can you talk about, is GE still a technology leader? Is there a story there that we need to know about? And secondly, how do you feel about the way investors are thinking about GE? Are you pleased with, do you think that the story is getting out, or are there elements of the story that will need to be understood?
Yeah, those are two great questions. Laura, I would say that as I look around the GE portfolio, we are leading today. Whether we go back to healthcare and those over 40 new product introductions we had in the teeth of the pandemic, the fact we have retooled our entire engine platform offering, the LEAP in the narrow body space, the 9X in wide bodies, doing the same in the military space as well. Really excited about what we're doing in offshore wind. I mentioned that earlier with our Haliade X offering. And as we look at the prospects for a hydrogen economy, we know we've got a whole slew of opportunities to innovate in and around our power businesses. So we're in a good position, technically speaking, today. But when you mentioned culture, about a year ago, we rolled out 3 leadership behaviors that we talk about every day and we really want our leadership team to embody: humility, transparency, and focus. And I just mentioned that in part because you did, but to come back, right, in the spirit of humility, we can't take our technology leadership for granted. We've got to make sure we're out every day, hearing what customers want, sometimes hearing what they need, but can't articulate. And in turn, making sure we're making both the technology bets and investing in new product introductions to meet those needs tomorrow. So I like where we are today, but what I'm hopeful that we're going to do in fortifying the foundation of the company, building the momentum that we have, it's just position us to play more offense, both organically and inorganically. With respect to investors, or I've never been one to get too worked up about where the stock closes on any one day. I think what we'll be judged on over time is our body of work. There are clearly folks that have looked back over the last many years at GE. They've been disappointed, perhaps they've been frustrated, and the onus is on us to prove that we can be better, that we have a different culture, that we're building on our historic strengths, but looking to add to them. And over time, realizing the value inherent in this company, in the opportunities that are before us. I think about the energy transition, precision health, the future of flight. Those are some really important problems the world is going to have GE help solve. And in turn, I think those are tremendous business opportunities. If we run the company well in pursuit of those types of solutions, over time, I think investors and others will take note. But again, it's up to us to just prove that out over time.
Thank you. Shiman, do you have any questions from your end?
Yeah, it's blowing up here. So Javier wants to know that how do you make a decision? Do you base it on too much information on just a few numbers or facts? How do you manage uncertainty when turning around or transforming a company like GE?
Well, how do I make decisions? I'm not sure we have enough time to go through that. I would say what I try to do around well, let me back up. I try not to make too many decisions. As CEO, you have to be careful. A lot of decisions can come to you, right? You don't want the organization to delegate up. And I really see my role as CEO, particularly here at GE, is developing great leaders. And part of that's making sure they're making the decisions that they should. But when something's going to come to my desk, what I try to do is listen to as many people as I possibly can, inside and outside of the company. I try to find a way to make sure that the bull and the bear arguments are well articulated. I usually have a gut view on things. And I always want to make sure I really understand the other side of the argument. It may or may not change my mind, but I know I'll make a better decision as a result. And related to how much information, I think what I've learned over time is you'll never have all the information that you'd like. And a decision sooner rather than later. And most decisions, if you get them wrong, you can adjust, right? Is just the reality that you need to embrace. So go ahead and decide. Now, you don't want to do that in a flippant haphazard way, right? But if I've got 80% of what I think is known or knowable, I'm in the decision zone at that point, and we'll take a decision. With respect to dealing with uncertainty, it's a bit related to that. I think what we've tried to do just over the last 12 months is recognize that we don't know for certain what lies ahead in the short term. But we need to forge ahead. And that's really what we did. We I think took a more conservative posture earlier than maybe some experts would have suggested regarding how COVID was going to impact the businesses. We took action accordingly, and we've been adjusting ever since. And I just think when you're trying to drive change amidst uncertainty, decide and move forward. Course correct where necessary, but just keep moving. And I think when they write maybe the next book on GE and how we've weathered this great challenge of COVID-19, I think that hopefully will be part of the story.
Thank you. Another question from you, Simon, from your end?
Right. So Alex is asking a question that's quite relevant to the value investing conference. Say that as a value investor, I have been a GE shareholder. The problem became that too many ghosts came out of the closet all at once and collapsed the share price drastically. As this is a value investing conference, how does the value investor gain protection from the unknown unknowns, the ghosts? What can you suggest?
Well, I think what we've tried to do in my short time with the company is open up the closet doors as best we possibly can, right? And share with investors what we share with our management team, what we share with our board. I just one ghost, I think, a big ghost has been our long-term care insurance exposure. I won't take you through all the history. All I know is what I was looking at day one when I joined the company. But it was clear that it's a complex situation that our history with suggests that we didn't have our arms around it. So we did something that a lot of people thought was a little extreme. We actually had an investor teach-in on our insurance business. And you think GE, this industrial powerhouse, would want to talk about its new jet engines, its new CT scanners, what we're doing in the energy transition. And here we were taking people through a legacy runoff insurance liability in great detail. We supplemented our quarterly and annual disclosures accordingly, just to put as much sunlight on that ghost as we possibly could. Now we're working to minimize that exposure, and at some point it may well be something that we're able to put with someone else. But until that day comes, it's our responsibility to manage it well, disclose it fully, and that's really, I think, what we've done. I think the other thing with respect to ghosts that I would just say, we have a board of 11 members. I think only 2 of whom have been with us for over 5 years. So the board has been dramatically reset. If you're an investor in GE today, you should sleep well. I mean, this is a smart, seasoned board that is fully engaged in oversight and in supporting management in its pursuit of the mission that I outlined earlier. So you can do your diligence on management. You can do your diligence through the filings and the like, but also you've got to look at that board and take your own measure as to whether they're a good steward, a good representative for you. And I would argue our board rates very highly in that regard.
Thank you. Richard Lee, please unmute yourself. There you go.
Hi, Larry. Thanks for your time. Big fan of, been following you since really the Danaher days. My question is really twofold. One is, so what inning do you think you are in the GE restructuring process? And do you feel like you still have some levers to pull to maybe crystallize more value? And then my second question is more about just aviation in general. What are you seeing sort of on the ground? Because I think everyone is just trying to get a better sense of what future of travel is going to look like post.
Right.
Any color on that would be great.
Right, Richard. Thank you. I appreciate the good words. You know, I would say that we're probably in the third inning, which I think puts us in the first period for the hockey fans on the line. I'm a big baseball fan, less so a Bruins fan here in Boston. But so it's early, Richard. It's still very early relative to the transformation, right? We're in the course of putting this tremendous debt away with the AirCap transaction, get to the close, work through that. We will have retired just over $70 billion of debt the last couple of years. And when you combine the deleveraging with the operational improvements that are underway, I would say that we're really just setting the stage here, right, to drive the operational improvements with respect to safety, quality, delivery, and cost on an annual basis. And when I say annual, I'm talking about it really creating a cumulative effect that I think will be meaningful here. And as we focus management, as we focus the entire team on the opportunities in these 4 businesses, as we set ourselves up financially and operationally to play more offense, both organically and inorganically, I just think there are a host of levers. I wish we didn't have this darn pandemic. I know I speak probably for everybody here, but we did. So we tried to make the most of it. But again, I think as we come out of the pandemic, as we see through our deleveraging, a lot of the things you see us doing should have more effect on the business and ultimately should be the engine behind the value creation we aim to deliver at GE.
Okay, Steve Culp, please unmute yourself.
Hi, can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, Steve.
Good
Go
afternoon.
ahead.
Good afternoon. Thanks for joining us. Big fan of what you've accomplished at Danaher and excited to see you here at GE now. So at Danaher, it was your initiative to pivot the company to higher margin businesses like life sciences, and it was extremely successful. How different could GE look in 10 years, and what kind of pivots may we see?
Well, to be clear, we had a tremendous team at Danaher. It wasn't just me, and we've got a tremendous team still there doing good work. I couldn't be more proud of Reiner and his team. Tom, who recently retired, did a phenomenal job as well. I think at GE we have much bigger sandboxes in which to play in than we did at Danaher, right? When we talk about these three global opportunities around the energy transition, precision health, and the future of flight, we have a lot to do. So I don't think you're necessarily going to see us pivot out of those businesses and into a completely different set of businesses in the way that Danaher did and has over time. Could it happen? Maybe, but in many respects, between the opportunities we have in the markets that we occupy today, and frankly, what we need to demonstrate to investors to regain the license to invest in new businesses, that'll take a while. So a little hard to call where we're going to be in 10 years. But I think what I'd like to do, again, is make sure that off this fortified foundation, we play more offense organically first, and over time, rebuild investors' confidence in our ability to identify opportunities, size them up smartly, cut the right economic deal, and integrate and operate them well.
Thank you. Ian Collins, I'll allow you to unmute. Please unmute yourself if you want to ask the question.
Great. Thanks again, George. Yeah, Larry, thanks so much for your comprehensive presentation. I was wondering how you would characterize the culture of GE before the evolution, the keys you sort of outlined, some of them, where it is now, where you want it to be, and just your major challenges along the way. I think a lot of it you've discussed.
Well, I would just come back maybe and expand on these leadership behaviors we rolled out a year ago. This wasn't a list I had in my pocket when I walked in, rest assured. But we talk about humility in part because there's a level of humility required to frankly ask questions.
Right.
Then send messages, right? And whether we're talking about somebody that works for me or a customer or really anyone else, I want to make sure our leaders are humble enough to ask a question before they send a message, right? To listen and to learn.
Right.
I think it also takes a great deal of humility to know when you don't know something, right? Because if you're confident to the point of being overconfident, you can get yourself in trouble and you can get the company in trouble. So we talk a lot about humility, not that we aren't proud and confident leaders, right? But I would argue proud and confident leaders can also be humble and acknowledge shortcomings, acknowledge what they don't know, as well as ask questions of everybody in and around them. We talk about transparency in part because one of the first reviews I attended was a review where I knew the business was struggling, but in the first page of the deck, you would have never drawn that conclusion if you were coming to the conversation for the first time. So I'm just a big believer in that you want a balanced scorecard, right? You want the good and the bad together. So I've just simply said, and I think the leadership teams really embrace this, let's be honest with each other. What's working? What's not working? What's green? What's red? And my expectation is you're gonna put all that reality on the table. And I promise you, I'm not going to yell and scream and throw things if things are red. In many respects, the way we talk about it at GE is red is the new green. What does that mean? If we can acknowledge a problem, we have a good chance of solving it. Again, a lot of smart, capable people around here. If we bury problems, they just fester. When we put them on the table, those are opportunities for us to improve and get better, be it for investors or for customers or both. And just in terms of focus, GE is a company with tremendous capabilities and obviously a storied history. GE's got tremendous ambition, and I don't want to dilute that. However, that doesn't mean we can do everything, right? We really have to pick and choose. We have to prioritize. We have to focus. So what we've tried to do is just reinforce for everyone that it's okay to say no, or at least say later, so that we're really clear about the critical few things that we need to do today and tomorrow and get them done. And then we can work the rest of the list later. Because when we sign up for everything, little gets done in most situations, in my experience. So hopefully that gives you a little bit of a flavor for why those leadership behaviors are important to us and what we hope they will drive over time here at GE.
That's excellent. Thank you.
Thank you very much. So
Thank you.
Run out of time. So thank you very much, Larry, for taking time off your business schedule and for this wonderful interaction and comments with the audience. I hope we do this live next time.
Let's do that, George. Thank you very much.